Hi, it's Netta, and I'm so excited to tell you that the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program is open now. To apply to join, just go to aftersugarclub.com and click on the Program tab at the top of the page. The Freedom from Cravings Formula program is specifically designed to help you get rid of cravings, slim down, and finally feel in control around food, especially sugar. Go to aftersugarclub.com and click on the Program tab. Speak to you soon. Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast. The podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. And in this week's episode, I'm talking with Irene, who you'll hear has a completely different approach to food from me, which is what I want you to listen to, because a lot of people think that I only have guests on this podcast who think like me, and that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, I didn't even know Irene's approach to food before I talked to her, and I was happy to find out that where I am an abstainer, Irene is a moderator. Want to know what that means? Well, you'll find out in our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. Okay, so let's get to my chat with Irene. Oh, and by the way, I recorded this just as I had come out of losing my voice, so you'll hear a bit of a difference in my voice. All right, so I'm here today with Irene. And Irene, can you tell us a little bit about your background with food and especially with sugar?
Yes. Hi, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. I found your podcast really, really interesting. And I've always been kind of a little bit of a health nut. I ran cross country in high school. I used to run a lot of 5Ks. Always been trying to be on the healthy side, but my weight has fluctuated. I am American, like you pointed out in our conversation before, that it's really hard not to eat processed foods and a lot of sugar. And I grew up in a household where my mother loved sugar and she loved processed food. My parents grew up on farms, both of them, on farms in Ukraine. But I'm first generation American. I was born here. So it was really a combination of processed unhealthy foods, but also my parents did a lot of cooking. But they also did a lot of cooking with things like bacon grease. Like they would save it because they grew up poor on a farm. So, what it really was, she made a lot of different soups and stews and borscht and a lot of healthy things too. But also, my parents were both a little bit overweight. And I was usually pretty thin, but having two children and my weight has fluctuated over the years, often have to get back on track and reduce my sugar and things like that. But they both were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and they both had to, you know, do something about it. And I remember my mother, it was really interesting in that episode you recorded about the sugar substitutes, because she came home one day with, what was it? Aspartame, the first one, sucralose, these little pills. And she was so unhappy because she loved her Cheetos and she loved Entenmann's, muffins, processed Hostess. She really, really loved sugar. And so cutting out sugar for her was really, really tough.
Did she have to cut out sugar? Like, what made
She
her?
she was diabetic, and she was dangerously diabetic. She had to take insulin, and she ended up getting very sick, almost died, had her leg amputated because the sugar made a hole in her foot.
Oh.
And then later died of, in her sleep of, diabetes. And they called it natural causes. But she really struggled with how she ate. So growing up and watching this, I was always, a health geek. I read every single health magazine, Self, Women's Health, Prevention, and have always been interested in maintaining health. And I've never had to take medication for any type of illnesses like that. So I really believe, and why I think your podcast is so important is because the way you eat makes such an enormous difference in your energy, your health, your well-being. And those medications, they have so many horrible side effects. And so
Mhm.
it really, really does affect your overall happiness and joy of living.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people eat probably as much sugar as your parents ate and don't become diabetic. And yet some eat even less and do become diabetic. Does diabetes run in your family?
Well, I don't know about my ancestors because they were from Ukraine, and my parents, after the war, after World War II, never found any of their siblings or even knew what happened to them. So I don't really know about that. But as far as my immediate family, no, it does not. And it was type 2 diabetes, and it was both of my parents, and they were both overweight as
Mhm.
well. So being a healthy weight, my dad walked every single day. So he did exercise, but he would make, pot roast on Sunday. He cooked with bacon, they eat pork and things like that, that I really don't even really aren't a part of my diet for the most part. So
What's the connection between eating bacon, fat, or pork and diabetes? Do you know?
it's just the weight gain. I mean, olive oil or healthy oils, cooking with oils, is the healthier choice. And eating all of that saturated fat is just not that's not good. It's not safe.
Well,
It's
actually, that's been debunked in many, many scientific studies that eating saturated fat or dietary fat doesn't actually lead to weight gain. And it's more to do with sugar and the insulin reaction that leads to weight gain.
My father was never a big sugar person. He was
Mhm.
never a big sweet person.
Okay.
But
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, that's my personal experience and
Yeah.
watching what my parents ate and watching and so maybe it's speculative, but this was my personal experience, not
Yeah.
I've never really read that much about it. Or I mean, yeah, over the years. But even just like you have to be careful what you believe, because I mean, look at that. I was just thinking about that new fat-free potato chips when, Alestra was it came out, banned in Europe and Canada, and not banned here in the US, but not used anymore, or not
Mhm.
that we're aware of. So, you know,
Yeah.
but you have to be careful. You have to be
Oh,
very, very
totally.
careful.
You have to be careful with not only, what you're told, but how much you actually educate yourself about human biology and how the body works.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
of course, there's also, moderation. I've always been a believer. And one of my favorite sayings is life is short, eat dessert first. But, if I'm craving something and I really, really want it, and I try to eat something else, but I still want that. And I did download your craving guide. I haven't read it yet. I haven't had time, but thank you
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah, you're
If you
welcome.
guys haven't grabbed it, you should. 5 ways to knock out those cravings, right?
Yes,
Something like
yes.
that. But I find that if I just have it and just a little bit, like I go to the point of where I will buy like a pack of those little mini bar, like Snickers or something, or Milky Way, and I will literally cut one teeny tiny little fun bar into pieces and just have one or two teeny tiny little pieces of that chocolate, and then I'm fine. And then I don't crave it the rest of the day. And
Yeah.
then I'll go for carrots or celery or blueberries because I've satisfied it.
Yeah, and
So
this is
that's
very typical of moderators like yourself. Excuse my voice. Of moderators like yourself who are able to do that, whereas people like myself, that wouldn't work whatsoever.
wow. Well, yeah, I can't really imagine that. I mean, I guess I can. There are definitely times where on a Saturday night when, the kids were with their dad, they're at college now, where I'm like, wow, I could eat anything I want for dinner. And I literally sat down, put on a movie, and just got chips and dip. And I'm like, I ate chips and dip for dinner. And then I didn't want them again for a while.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
but
that's
probably ate too
amazing.
many. Probably ate too many, you
Well, I
know.
mean, that's amazing to someone like me who just can't stop at a little bit or, at one bite or a handful of chips. And there's many, many, many of us for whom moderation, where sugar is concerned, or these highly processed foods like chips, it just doesn't work on our type of brain. And so I'm happy to meet someone for whom it does work. It's fantastic to know that it's out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I, I, I really want to read your guide now. I'm very, very curious now to read that. Um, when I was thinking about, our conversation today, and when I really needed to make changes was after I had my second child. So with my first baby, I was back in my jeans in 6 weeks. I bought the jog stroller. We walked until she was 6 months, and then we ran with my second daughter. I went out and got that double jog stroller right away. Always out for walks, always healthy, always, very, very active. But with my second daughter, it took me 2 years before I lost the baby weight. And I
Wow.
was very unhappy. I was unhappy with myself. I was feeling very depressed. We had moved to North Carolina. I didn't want to. My husband at the time was transferred. So that wasn't going very well. So a lot of things going on in my life and just not making the healthier choices. We didn't have in the town where I lived, we didn't have access to healthy foods as easily. I had
Yeah.
to drive 20 minutes to the better supermarket to get, blueberries, fresh produce and things like that. We didn't have the farmers markets, very, very different. And so it was very hard to eat healthier. And it was a very life-changing moment for me when I was approaching 40. and I was like, wow, like I'm not happy with myself. And it actually, I ended up getting the stomach flu. And talk about turning like lemons into lemonade. I lost 8 pounds. I couldn't eat for days. I was sicker than I'd been in so long. And man, I put on my clothes. I felt so good. And I remember it was January 22nd. It was 6 months to my birthday. And I'm like, in 6 months, I'm going to be 40 and I'm going to be in the best shape of my life.
And
And
hopefully
it
not
really,
through being sick.
no, right, exactly. And I remember someone saying to me, like, oh, but the thing with the flu is it comes right back on. And I'm like, yeah, I'll show you. I'm like, it's not coming back on. And I remember we were in Barnes and Noble, we were at the mall or shopping or something, and I picked up this book. Have you ever heard of the book Skinny Bitch
Yeah.
by Rory Friedman and Kim I don't know how to say her last name. You have?
Yes.
This book was life-changing for me. And I made so many healthy changes. One of the most difficult things I had to give up because I can't even stand the thought of having a pop or a soda, whichever you prefer, right?
Hmm.
Ugh, I mean, it's just gross. It's sugar. I mean, if I do have a beverage when if I out to eat, I mean, maybe with a, glass of wine sometimes, but it would either be an unsweetened iced tea or just water with lemon. I
Hmm.
just drink a lot of water with lemon. I don't drink, but I was hooked on Diet Coke.
Huh.
And I would only have one a day because I remember talking to my doctor when I was pregnant. And she's like, oh, one diet Coke a day isn't going to kill you. She said, you have no idea how many people drink throughout the day. But if I didn't have that Coke at around noon every day, around lunchtime, I would get a headache.
Hmm.
It is that addictive.
Oh, yeah.
And when I read about Diet Coke and artificial sweeteners in this book, oh, it was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to give up in my life. I still really craved it. And I've never been a smoker. I've never been an addict. I mean, this is really the closest thing to addiction that I can relate to. But for 6 months, I just wanted a Diet Coke so bad. And
Wow.
but I couldn't, but the thought of drinking it I wanted to vomit,
Mm.
reading how the same ingredients go in formaldehyde as they do in aspartame. And oh, I was so grossed out that I'm like, I'm giving it up. I would every once in a while, if I was at like a kid's birthday party or something, maybe just have a little tiny little cup of it. But now I don't even crave it. The thought of it just makes me, and the last time, which was years ago, that I even had a sip, it tasted horrible. It didn't even taste good to me.
Yeah.
So I did finally overcome that, but that was tough. But I got healthier. I really did. I started doing calisthenics and Pilates on top of my aerobic activity. And I was in great shape. In 6 months, I did it. I was very, very happy with myself and my eating
Wow.
choices. But
Congrats.
it was tough because I still had to make dinner for my husband and my kids. And, although I subtly made healthier changes for them, you can't force someone to change.
Very true.
And,
Very true.
there are times where my youngest daughter, all she would wanted was chicken nuggets and tater tots or like, and so,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't eat any of that stuff. Um, so yeah, so I did a lot of things where I just started eating more salad, more healthy vegetables, things like that. And I did go vegetarian, which again was tough because I was still cooking meat for the family, but I made it work. So, if you want something badly enough, you can do it.
Hmm. Yeah. And especially when you feel better, maybe not immediately, but in the long run. And did you find that your life got easier when you stopped craving, for example, the Diet Coke?
I do. And I didn't even psychologically, it was easier. And I felt better. I felt healthier. I felt less bloated. I felt, good to put on my running clothes or wear skimpier clothes. And, when I do put on that extra 5 pounds, which I do, I'm not at my healthiest weight right now. And I don't feel as good about myself And so that was part of the reason too. I was like, I want to revisit these books I love. I love listening to your podcast. It really is helpful to have inspiring encouragement from podcasts like yours and from books out there and from other people who are on the same journey to living a happier, healthier life.
Yeah.
And it affects you on so many levels, your health, getting sick, and even just your emotional well-being and your happiness.
Yeah. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. And is that like your definition of healthy? How you feel, what you eat, what you do? Do you have a definition of healthy?
That's an interesting question. I do believe that it's how you feel, and even, especially about yourself and your overall being, and of course not being pain-free, being I suffered from fibromyalgia for a very, very long time, and they just want to push meds on you. And when it's needed, it's needed. Whatever. I'm not. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to go there. But I like not having to take any type of medication that gives you horrible side effects. I don't like being sick, and when I am even just a little bit more overweight, I do get sick more often. You're very, and honestly, reducing your body weight by even 5% decreases your risk of getting cancer and other diseases drastically. Not even just a little bit, but drastically, studies have shown.
Yeah. And have you found that weight loss has been the number one change in your health since you started eating cleaner?
Yeah, I think it would be the number one. Yes. Yeah, definitely weight loss. I notice if I'm 5 or 10, extra pounds, I definitely notice a difference in my overall health and well-being, emotionally and physically,
Interesting.
and in people that I know.
Yeah.
And another thing that I didn't even bring up, which was really a significant life-changing thing in my life, is my sister Natalie died of cancer when she was only 46.
Oh, sorry.
And Natalie, oh, thank you. And Natalie always struggled with her weight. I mean, she was always trying new things. She would walk, she would take the stairs, but she loved to eat. And I don't know so much about sweets, but I do know that, every time we went out to dinner, we split a piece of cheesecake. So, but she did. And I'd go to her house and there was always the Entenmann's around and things like that. And she, and she ended up dying of cancer. And,
Wow.
there are other contributing factors, obviously, too. And cancer does not run in my family. It's not. And she did have the test done to show that it was not, I can't remember what the word, it had nothing to do with, being hereditary or in the gene. So that put me and my girls and even her son in the just normal, risk factor. So
Yeah.
did not put me in the higher risk factor just because my sister died of it. So
Got it.
I was
Yeah.
very thankful that her insurance covered that test and she was able to have that done.
Yeah.
And that, because I worried about my kids too. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, so now, how can I ask how old you are?
oh yeah, how old am I? I forget. I am, oh my gosh, 56.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
56.
So
Yeah.
we're very close in age. Do you feel your age?
No, I forget. Honestly, I wanted to throw out 46, like without blinking an eye. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I'm in my 50s. The other day, something happened. I don't remember what it was that triggered me. I'm like, I'm going to be 60 in a few years. How is that possible? And I don't know. I don't know what it was that made me think about that. But, I feel great. I, I'm very active. I'm very, I exercise. I still feel like the best days of my life are ahead, but I
Yeah.
haven't even lived them yet.
Fantastic.
How old
Fantastic.
are you?
I'm 55.
Okay.
Yeah, just a number, right? And can you,
It's an angel number. 55 is a very special number.
oh yeah?
It is.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, I don't know that I don't remember exactly what it means, but I see it a lot. 555, 55. And one of the books I want to write is actually called 555, if you could believe that.
Oh,
It is
okay.
a very, very positive year for abundance and things like that. I don't remember because I look up a lot of numbers. So, but
Okay.
something
Cool.
about 5, 5, yeah.
Okay. And can you give us an idea of what you eat in a day or in a week?
Knew you were going to ask me that. And like this past week has been like one of my worst weeks. I have not been, but I go through stages. Sometimes I will just have, nuts in the morning for breakfast and a little bit of fruit. I eat fruit every day. Today I've already had some blueberries and tangerine. I did make myself an egg for breakfast. And I don't eat a lot of carbs, a lot of bread, but I've been craving them. So I did cut a little piece of baguette and I had a little egg sandwich this morning. But I love spicy food. So I put a little bit of crushed red pepper on it to give it more flavor and spice it up a little bit. So this week I'm eating eggs. Some weeks I don't even buy eggs. I go without them. And for a long time, I was making the little chia seed mix as an egg substitute, testing with different vegan. But today for dinner, I'm going to make homemade borscht with beets and cabbage and carrots and some potato and a little celery and onion and a vegetable stock. So it's a vegetarian borscht. And so when I make a big pot of soup, and I don't make a big pot the way I used to for my kids, I used to make a big pot when the kids were home, and then I would freeze half of it. And then we would have, soup. But if I make vegetable soup or cabbage soup or the borscht, then because it's so easy to go and grab and it's so delicious, then I eat healthier that week. So I have everything. I made a pot last week and it's gone already. So I'm going to make more.
Cool.
So I try to eat healthy for the most part, but I also treat myself. Last night I had a Caesar salad for dinner, not the healthiest choice, but I wanted it and it was delicious. So
It's funny because sometimes I hear people say, I eat healthy, but I also treat myself. And it sounds to me as if eating healthy is like a sort of a punishment or not a treat, that they have to treat themselves with
yeah.
something else?
Well, I think because I eat healthy most of the time, that I think I do. I mean, I love olives, and usually if I'm having a salad, it will be, of course, then I put a little bit of processed feta cheese in there, but the olives and the olive oil, and I even make homemade dressings, so I know exactly what's going into them and always light on the dressing. I'm not, I bought that Caesar salad kit. I literally have enough dressing to buy a whole extra bag of lettuce and use it. because
Yeah.
I just don't like it saturated with, with too much dressing. And I think that those little things really collectively make a difference,
Hmm. Little
and
things like what, sorry?
portion control.
Well, that again, I think from my personal experience and from people I help, portion control is a good approach for moderators, but doesn't apply to us abstainers.
Mm. I don't know much about that. I'm very curious,
Yeah. Well, I made a whole
about that.
podcast episode about are you an abstainer or a moderator? And I think it was episode 12, if I'm not mistaken. But I really find that although you can't, divide the whole of the world population into two groups, that's not very scientific. But plenty of us, when it comes to sugar and or processed foods, some of us cannot moderate and some of us can. And some of us would love to be able to moderate and be like you. And, it's like sometimes these two groups just don't understand each other, can't imagine what it's like to be like the other, right? And the people I help in my program are usually abstainers. In other words, for us, zero is freedom. But goodness knows we would love to be moderators like you.
Wow. So you don't eat any sugar at
No,
all?
no,
Like none. What
not for the
about
last 10
fruit?
years. No.
You fruit either?
Yeah, fruit. So we make the distinction between naturally occurring sugars and added or refined sugar. So added and refined sugar, I would say for myself, no, not at least not knowingly for the last 10 years. Fruit, I think I can eat a piece of fruit and that's enough for me in terms of sweet tastes.
Mm. I don't even, I don't usually even eat a whole piece of fruit. Like I will cut an apple in half and throw the other half in the fridge and eat it the next day
Yeah,
or something. Like
yeah,
I don't need a lot.
exactly. That sounds like me as well. And I don't eat flour, grains, or sweeteners either.
Mm.
Um,
I don't like most sweeteners, but I have been, and I'm not a huge honey fan, but I was doing so much speaking and my throat, I was having kind of trouble with my throat. And in the morning, I make I just put a couple slices of fresh ginger, um, and sometimes a clove, and so a squeeze of lemon, and I make a warm ginger tea every morning. That's how I start my day. And but I do put just a teeny bit, maybe like a quarter teaspoon, just one little squirt of honey,
mhm,
100% pure honey in there. And
lovely.
so do you eat honey at all?
No, I just don't like
No.
sweet tastes at all anymore. I try and keep away from
Mm,
them because I just don't like them. There's nothing wrong with them
yeah.
per se. I just don't like them. So I'm just coming out of losing my voice, and so I gargle with hot, salty water, um,
Mm,
and I don't swallow it. I gargle with it, and that helps a lot.
right. Right.
Mm.
Oh, that's
And
very interesting to
yeah,
me.
and of course, I don't expect everyone else to be like me. We're all
No,
different.
of course not. And so how has that affected, and I apologize, I only listened to 2 episodes, so I haven't heard that much of your story yet, but I'm, definitely intrigued and can't wait to listen to more. But so how has that affected your overall health and well-being over the last 10 years?
Well, it's night and day, really. I mean, I have been in the greatest of health, losing my voice is a very small price to pay for being a full-time teacher as I am. And it happens very, very rarely. But generally, I have great health. And I don't remember the last time I was actually sick. I used to have terrible digestive problems. My digestion is now regular. My weight, I feel like I've got my 20-year-old body back. I've got energy. My mood is stabilized. It's like my skin is clear. It's all the good things. And I don't feel
Hmm.
like you, I don't feel my age whatsoever.
Yeah, you have fantastic skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It
does
and
make a
it
difference. A lot of people tell me that too. They're like, you have such great skin.
yeah.
And I'm 100% convinced that it's what I eat, because I've changed skincare products, whatever, but every,
Yeah.
whatever product out there at some point, right? But I really think it's more important to drink a lot of water
Yes.
and be careful with what you eat. And I notice such a difference if I don't eat healthy, if I splurge on some type of fast food or something, which I try not to do, but every once in a while I do. I crave it. And the next day I feel it. Like,
Yeah.
why did I do that?
Yes, we
Was it
do
worth
become,
it?
yeah, absolutely. We become more sensitive to it generally and feel the effects faster. So it's, it's like we have a new normal of eating healthy. And I actually don't say that I'm careful about what I eat because I don't find that I live my life being careful. I just eat food.
Just eat what you eat that you like.
Yeah.
So would you mind sharing what is your main diet?
Yeah, well, since I cut sugar and flour and sweeteners, funnily enough, I got hungry less often and less intensely. And at some point, I remember thinking, hang on, it's lunchtime, but I don't feel hungry, Whereas before, I was like starving at 11 a.m. and would sort of
Mhm.
have to like really work hard to wait until lunchtime. Whereas now it's like, take it or leave it. I'll eat when I'm hungry. And sometimes there's just once a day, sometimes it's twice a day, but rarely more often than that. So that's one thing
Really?
surprising. Yeah, it's like
Huh.
this
I'm
whole
a
carrot.
snacker.
Yeah, well, I used to be a snacker.
I
And this
don't
whole,
like eating big meals. I don't
right.
like the way I feel after a big meal. Like on Thanksgiving, I don't need to binge.
Well, it's
I can
funny.
eat a little bit later or have a little more tomorrow. Like I don't like feeling that way.
I totally get that. And it's funny because I used to feel like that with meals that contained flour, especially for me, for my system. I would
Mhm.
feel after a big meal with anything like pasta or any kind of pastry, I would just feel bloated and full. Whereas now I do eat meat, so a huge steak and vegetables and butter and salt and all the things you're not supposed to eat. And I feel absolutely fine, not full, not tired, not bloated, just energetic. Isn't that
Yeah,
funny?
just lean, healthy meat. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. And there's
I actually eat the fattiest cuts possible.
hmm,
Yeah. I
really?
don't enjoy lean
Oh.
meat. It doesn't taste good to me.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Goes to show just how different we are, but what we have in common, not just you and me, but I take you and me as an example,
Right,
is
right.
that we just feel good.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I know. If I just have soup, and I honestly just rarely have bread in the house. I do I do like organic whole grain bread sometimes though with seeds and things like that in it,
Yeah.
like a 12 grain or something
Mhm.
like that, or sprouted grain, or there's some pretty good vegan breads out there, you know.
Yeah. So
But I agree with you 100%. I can't remember the last time I ate a donut or something like that because I just don't feel good afterward. And it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't want it because I think about how it makes me feel. So that's interesting.
yeah.
Huh. And whenever I want to lose weight, I go on a more similar diet like yours. And it really, I mean, it's amazing how cutting out bread and sugar, wow, how it can really kind of shock your system and help you like lose weight very quickly.
Yeah, I found that too. And then I read up about it, about why and how the human body reacts to
Right.
stimulus of insulin, and how that makes us put on weight, the vast majority of us. And once I understood how you put on weight, I understood why when I cut sugar and flour, I lost weight.
Mhm. I actually wrote a weight loss book.
Oh, yeah?
It was my very first book. I dedicated it to my sister because I really wanted, people to know and her story and share about, just the health benefits of weight loss. And it's a um, it's a low carb diet, and it's helped women. One of my friend Charlotte, as soon as the year I published the book, she dropped 2 dress sizes in 6 weeks and lost 8 pounds just by doing all the things in my book. And it's very, very similar to what you eat, except I just don't like fatty meat.
Yeah.
I grew up on it, and it kind of grosses me out, so when I do eat meat, which isn't often, but I do feel better when I eat more protein,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, whether it's quinoa, whether it's nuts. I eat a lot of nuts, a lot of beans. I make vegetarian chili. I use mushrooms in almost everything because it gives it that meaty, feel to it. I make vegetarian sloppy joes and, lots of different, I like to play around with chickpeas and black beans. And so I do eat a lot of protein, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but that's
Isn't it
interesting.
amazing? It's amazing because all the things you just listed, I can't eat because I feel awful when I eat them. And again, I'm not saying they're
Wow.
bad. I'm just saying, isn't it amazing how different we can be? And yet the common denominator is how we have found a way to feel good. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the exact same way.
But I remember, like growing up, beans would make me kind of bloated and gassy, but now my body just is used to it. But I also think it's because of moderation. I don't eat a big giant bowl of chili. I just eat a little bowl of chili and then I'm
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
and without the bread and butter on the side,
Right.
so,
Fantastic.
you
I
don't eat
think,
crackers with soup. I don't eat crackers with soup. I just have a bowl of soup full of
gotcha.
vegetables. It's delicious.
I think it's so inspiring for people to hear our conversation because, a lot of people that I talk to on this podcast are like me, abstainers. And it's pretty rare for me to talk to a moderator and a happy moderator like yourself. So I'm really, really happy that we had this conversation. And I hope that it inspires the listeners. And thank you so much for being here
Well,
and for
thank
talking with me.
you. I had a really, really good time. I really, really enjoyed meeting you and having this conversation and being a guest on your show. I love what you do. I think it's fantastic. So keep
Thank you
up the
so much.
wonderful work.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Irene as much as I did. And I think the diet culture has made us believe that there's a one size fits all approach, that we either all have to count calories, calculate macros, or that everyone should eat a little bit of everything in their diet. And I think our power, what I call our personal power, comes from knowing what is right for us as individuals. And whether or not that's the same as someone else doesn't matter. That's not the point. Just like you heard with Irene, she and I are completely different. And we don't even like the same foods. But as you heard, the common denominator is that we've both found what makes us feel good. And that is what I want for you.
And that's why I'm inviting you to take the Cravings Quiz. It's a 10-question quiz that I created especially to get you thinking a little deeper about your cravings. That's the first step. And if you want to go deeper and get the guidance and accountability that you need to get rid of your cravings, slim down,
and finally feel in control around food, then the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program could be exactly what you need. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.